We're doing live editing today. Let's get straight into it. So you might be looking at this image on your screen like, I really like the way that this looks. I like the quality of it. But when it comes to creating compelling, high quality products, we want the image to be as captivating as it could possibly be. So let's do some color correction here to see how we can make this image stand out a lot more. The first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit Command-Option-K, and I'm just gonna go to my color correction keyboard. It's just a workflow that I put in place so that I can work more efficiently when I'm doing a color correction process. And then I'm gonna open up my inspector here, and I'm just gonna balance the color of the image. And balancing the color just means that I'm correcting the white balance. Because I actually shot this on auto. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but I'm correcting the white balance to make sure that the image and all of the colors and the skin tones are as accurate as possible and they mimic what we would see with our natural eye. So I'm gonna balance the color here, and I'm gonna go to a part of the image where I can clearly see the model's face, right? And I'm just gonna put a marker here. Zoom in the timeline a little bit. And so in order to correct this, we did Option-Command-B to bring up the balance color. And now I'm just gonna select white balance. And then I'm just gonna select the white part of the image, which is the wall here. And then we'll go from there to correct the rest of the image. So just putting that balance color on, let's see what it did, right? So the image looks a little dull. We throw the balance color on, and now it pops a little more. And that's just the first step. That's just the first step in the process. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to our effects panel here, and I'm gonna go to the draw mask. And I'm putting this effect on here because I want the skin tones to be in the place that they should be in. So I just simply, I'm gonna go back and show you what I'm doing here. I'm just selecting part of the skin, and I'm gonna bring up one of our scopes here, because it doesn't matter what your complexion is, your skin tone should line up on the flesh line on this vector scope. And we can see that it doesn't line up there. And that's why we drew the points around the skin, because we only want the skin to show up on this graph in order to correct it, right? So we're just gonna go to and add on a color wheel here, and then we're just gonna adjust the temperature. And see, it was too much on the yellow, so we're just gonna bring it over to the blue a little bit. And now we see that lines up on a flesh line, and we'll see what that does to the image. So we take the draw mask off, and let's look at this. Before the draw mask and the color wheel was added on, after the color wheel. Before the color wheel, after the color wheel. So we can see the image is looking a lot different already, right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna change our scope to our histogram, because I just want to make sure that nothing is too dark in the images and nothing is too light. And so we're just gonna correct the exposure here. So let's go back to this, and we're just gonna hit Command-B, and we're gonna add a color board. Again, that's something that I set up with my, my color correction workflow. And so we can see that the parts of the image are too bright, so I'm just bringing the exposure down to make sure it's within the 100, and I'm gonna bring the shadows down to make sure it's as close to 0 as it can possibly be. And we're just gonna scroll through the image to make sure, everything remains consistent throughout. And that looks pretty good. So we're gonna full screen it again so we can look at it. Now we can see that looks nice, right? That looks better. It stands out a little bit more. But there's still aspects of it that I think we can take it a lot further to make this image stand out more. So one thing, I wanna bring up the mid-tones just a little bit. So we're gonna get rid of that and bring up the mid-tones just a little bit. See, I like that. I like the mid-tones up just a little bit, but then I'm gonna adjust the saturation a bit. Because when you bring up those highlights, sometimes you drain the color out. And so I'm gonna bring that up, maybe 10. Good, I like that. I'm also gonna put a color curve on this image. I forgot what my shortcut was for that, so I'm just gonna go here, add a color curve, and I'm gonna put 1 point on the shadows, 1 point on a highlight, and this is just creating more contrast, more separation. There's a lot of whites and a lot of darks in here. So creating this contrast will make it stand out a little bit more. I'm just gonna put a little bit because I don't want it to be too harsh, especially for a female. You know, they usually like the softer look, softer skin tone. But we put a little color curve on there, and let's look at what that does. Look at that. Look at the separation that creates. Not too harsh, but it looks good. So let's look at all of the effects that we did together. We're gonna look at the before and after, and let's just scroll to a different point in this image. Maybe about there. I like that. Let's just put a marker there. So we're gonna do Control Option Command C. That's what it looks like before. Kind of bland, right? A lot of bland, not standing out. Afterwards, it's like, before it's like our eyes don't know where to look, right? But when we did these effects, these simple effects, it's like our eyes is drawn right to the person. She stands out. And that's what we want. We don't want people to watch this and not know where to look. We don't want people to watch this and not be drawn in. We want to direct them where to go, because we're leading them on this journey as they watch what we've created. And we want it to be enjoyable for them. We want them to desire to consume it, to enjoy consuming it, right? And so let's just look at these effects again. We're gonna take them all off. It's like everything is mushed together. I can see it, everything is mushed together. Nothing is standing out, there's no separation. And we just do these simple effects, and look, we know exactly where to look at on this image, right? So again, our first step was balancing the color, correcting that white balance in the image. And then something to keep in mind, even if you set the white balance in camera, I still go through the process of balancing the color once I get to post-production, because sometimes the cameras are not as accurate as we would want them to be as creators. And so go ahead and balance that color, put the draw mask to separate the skin, add the color wheels to make sure that the person's skin is on that flesh line. Go ahead and do the color board. This is just my process. And then I put a color curve on there just to make it separate a lot more. Again, one more time, and then we're out. Let's just look at it before and after. Before, bland and mushed together. After, it stands out. You know exactly where to look, and there's a much more beautiful image. And now that you see what it looks like afterwards, now you see that before image and you like, it don't look too hot. It don't look too hot, but now it looks beautiful. So I'm gonna be doing more of these live edits. Just stay tuned, and I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you on the next video.